Hey YouTube, and thank you for watching Junkworks DIY Garage. Well, I got George, my Massey Ferguson, early 50s Massey Ferguson tractor here, and I'm doing some work on the front end. There was some major old farm guy did the wrong thing stuff going on here, just to get the thing back going kind of thing. See if I can say thing more. But regardless, in the midst of that, what started this whole thing is the tire was rubbing over here on the kingpin area here. I believe that's what this section is. And I thought it was the bearings. I thought they were bad because there's a lot of grease back here. And this grease actually looks fairly new. I've also already torn apart the other side and it looks like it's been packed fairly recently. I'm going to go ahead and clean them up and just do them because I have the tractor up and ready to go and I'm working on the front end. But regardless, this wasn't my problem. These are actually pretty good shape. They're not moving in and out. In fact, the other side actually is worse than this side as far as it's a little bit loose, but this side's leaking more grease out the back. And I noticed in the other side the seal, they did not put a seal in, or it's an older seal that they just kind of shoved back there, and I'm thinking it was probably the same thing. Either they didn't put one in here or it's blown out kind of thing. Now, with these tractors, originally you did not put grease in the bearings in these tractors in the front end. They actually filled them with oil, which makes me wonder if this one is actually an aftermarket hub or this was after that. I don't know, but I know they originally filled most of these tractors with oil in the front end, so therefore you needed that seal. So I know a lot of old farmers just got rid of that seal and packed them with grease when they went to just packing the bearings with grease, which also, if you do research, you'll find out is just something they went to. I do think it's been fairly recent, but I'm going to go ahead and clean them up and get them not replaced. I'm going to actually just clean up and pack the original bearings, or the bearings that are in here. I don't know if they're original or not. So I'm going to crack this off. I've already loosened it. It actually wasn't very tight. I got an 1/16 right here, which is actually maybe a little big, but it pulled it off no problem. You could use a crescent, that'll work too, but I have the wrench, so I'm going to use it. And like I said, this one was not stuck at all. It came off really easy. Yours, who knows? Alright. We'll go in here, and like I said, I do believe it's been fairly recently gooped up with some fairly new oil, but I'm still going to go ahead. I don't know, from what I've seen on this tractor, if the guy knew diddly squat about working on anything. I have noticed a lot of makeshift stuff. Yet again, go watch my front end fix for this tractor and you'll see some of the janky stuff that I was driving around on for a while. So clean that up. We got our cotter pin here, which I like side cutters, just an old junky pair of side cutters. Grabs a hold of these things pretty easy, and that's a pretty wonky one there. And then I'll grab a hold of this, and that just kind of gives it a good grab or grip to pull that cotter pin out. And yet again, I'm just going to give it a bit of a wipe to keep my tools as clean as I can. And here I am just using a crescent, because I don't know what size this is, and these aren't ever on that tight, or at least they shouldn't be on very tight. Never reuse cotter pins, by the way. Now, here's where I see a lot of people grab their screwdrivers and they pry and pick, which, I mean, it'll come out. But this should be out now. If you take your fingers and your thumbs and you pull forward on this and then push back, that's how you get to, well, the bearing and everything in this case. There should be Oh boy, yeah, there it is. It's just stuck together with grease. There's this washer right here, which normally you'll just pull this washer off, and then the bearing will also come out a little ways. Usually you have to push it back in to get to the bearing, but bearing, washer. Now I'm actually going to take this and just clean it up. And that should, yep, pull right off. And yet again, there's no seal in here, but I'll show you what there is. It does appear that this has kind of the same thing. And then first of all, I'm going to pull this seat or bearing off of here, which these bearings do not seem like they're all that bad. They're just very caked on with grease. So first thing, get yourself a rig you're willing to throw away, and you're ready to get goobery. Alright. Normally I wouldn't pry at things too much, but it's just the grease is just kind of holding it on. It's not stuck on there. I'm going to clean these up really good. You'll see that later in the video. But right here is a seal. And I don't know if these are original, if they're supposed to be up on here where that was, or what. I'm going to have to do some more research on this. I don't know if this is, I mean, I'm certain it's an original thing, but I don't know if that's just to stay there in front of the seal or if this was the seal. I need to look more into that. And then we'll just get some of this grease. This is some of the stickiest grease. So the next thing you'll see me doing is washing, cleaning, and packing the bearings. I've done a video on this on one of my Harbor Freight trailers if you want a real in-depth version of this. So go check that out. It's one of those little red Harbor Freight trailers. It's exactly the same process, only bigger bearings. You know, and I'm going to have to clean the hub up and things like that real good. So I'll probably show this in fast forward. If you guys want another video, a more in-depth video at some point, put a comment below and I'll tell you. Something I will say, using these pans when your wife throws them out, or if you take them from the kitchen and they disappear, whatever, really like these pans. I've got several of them. So anyhow, it's a good place to put everything and keep it somewhat clean to begin with, and keep the mess off of your stuff as well. So I have come to realize, I've done a little bit of editing on this video, that a lot of this stuff you really can't see it. You don't need to see me keep washing things and spraying things and rubbing them with the toothbrush and rag. I'm going to get these things as clean as I can, and then I'll come back. So the cleaning part of it, I don't have a parts washer, so I just went through with carb cleaner and did the best I could of cleaning them up. Now, I probably would have done a little better job normally, but the biggest thing about this was, like I said, I don't think this was done that long ago before I bought the tractor. So I didn't bother taking all the old grease out of here, because although it was sticky, it looked clean and decent. I just kind of took a rag, went through it just to get the top layer of most of it off, put some new stuff, fresh stuff in. And same with this. You noticed probably me wiping my hand over here on the corner. That as I packed the bearings, if old grease came out, I just took my finger and kind of wiped that away and kept on wiping that away until the red, good, fresh stuff started coming through. Yet again, there wasn't a whole lot. When I went to get new stuff, I wiped my glove off pretty well on a rag over here so I didn't contaminate my good stuff too much. But yet again, I'm not too worried about it. This is fairly clean grease in here. So just for those who might say something, another side note, make sure, because you saw me kind of put down bearings and grab bearings over here, make sure that the bearings that you took out of the spot you took them out in goes back in that spot. The races that are on the inside of these, because I didn't replace the whole thing, the races that go with the bearings, so they've ridden in those races, which is the hardened steel, that sleeve, I guess you would say, that these kind of roll in. Those kind of bed themselves into each other and get familiar with each other, so to speak. So you want to make sure that you put them back exactly where they came out of. Now, another note, I am not going to try and get the seal that goes over this. I'm going to try and just put this back, because it's been that way for quite a while, and I really don't see a large problem in that. If I notice later on I'm having problems with lots of grease squeezing out of behind here, then I will deal with that later. Now on this also, there's the metal side. The metal side actually faces down and actually kind of holds that bearing in a bit. So you want to make sure that part goes down against the bearing there, and when you push it all on, this rubber outer part on is facing outside. And then that'll kind of clamp around the spindle and hopefully keep all the grease in. If not, I will find and see if I think there might be a seal you can get that you can put on this side of it too, but I'm not sure if you do that if it'll actually fit on this tractor. So I'm going to run it this way for now. You guys can kind of do your own research. I do think there are several different iterations of these different tractors. I know that the Bundy Bear's shed, I've watched all his TE, I think it's TEA or TE 20 videos, and there are definitely a lot of differences between that tractor and my tractor, which is a TO20. So just so you know out there, there's a lot of good stuff on his channel, and the information, some of it applies to this tractor, some of it is a little bit different. So one other side note, I would suggest putting the same hubs back on the same spindles they came off as well, because those spindles will probably kind of have some wear to them that also coincide with these. So yet again, to each their own. Alright, and I have since we put the bearing in there, that seal in there, and that we're just going to bring on here and push it all the way in. That seems to be sitting there nicely. That should kind of hold itself. A little bit of the grease that popped out in there. Then we'll take the bearing, get it on in there. I usually try and spin it a couple times. Then you got this washer here. I didn't give you a very good look at it, but it's got like a tooth there that corresponds with a cutout in the spindle here. put that on up against the bearing, and then our castle nut here. Now, this is where those million different ways to skin a cat, even though I wouldn't do it type things happens here. I don't mind a little bit of grease on there, need be, but I'll usually take that, kind of tighten it up as much as I can, let it spin, not as much as I can, just snugged it up. Let it spin a few times, maybe even back the other direction, and then give it a, then tighten it up until I can't really spin it too much. Yet again, I'm not absolutely reefing on it, but kind of getting it tighter than it probably should be. Spin it a few times again. That's kind of get your bearings. The bearings could be kind of off like that, and that straightens them up. So once again, I'll kind of snug it up a little bit more. That's about all I feel I want to go there. And then I will back it off, and then by hand bring it in. And that feels pretty good. Now, if I felt any play this way or that way, or any of that kind of stuff, I might snug it up a little bit more. And then we're going to take our new cotter pin, which looks old, but it's actually an original old kind of style one. I actually found a bunch of cotter pins at a garage sale for free in a box. And this is where you're going to usually go straight across here. So I am going to, rather than loosen it up, I'm going to tighten it slightly until I find it. Now, some people like it looser, some people like it tighter. Bearings will expand, but only once they get real hot and at higher speeds. You know what? This cotter pin might be a little big, actually. There we go. Alright. So, I tend to go towards the snugger side if I know that the bearings aren't going to get a lot of heat in them. This thing doesn't go fast enough to get a ton of heat into it. To each their own, yet again, on that. Wipe all the crud off that I got on. So we got our cotter pin in here. I'm going to, yet again, there's different methods on this. Some people like having this out here like this, but if I did that, I couldn't get this on. I personally like putting it in so this cannot move. I don't know if you can tell the difference. And then bring this forward. I'm going to have to cut this off, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to with this set of cutters. There we go. Set that somewhere where it won't go in a tire. Also, probably going to have to cut this off a little bit as well. And I'll have to go find that. And then I'm gonna put that flat. So I folded that in front. Then I'm gonna take the back of this right here. I should have a hammer, but for some reason I didn't bring my hammer over from the other side. I'm gonna stick that on there and get that to go, hopefully, more flat. And now this is not wanting to play. So I'm going to push it in more, probably. Let's see here. Of course, the other side went perfectly, and this side is going to be a pain because I'm filming it. Alright. That should be enough, but I'm going to try and flatten it. I usually try and get this as tight as it'll go in here and then kind of flatten this part sticks back that way, but you don't want it caught up in here, so make sure that's not too long. Then we're going to go around, make sure everything's good. I'm pretty happy with that. We don't have any movement, but it's moving fairly freely. Then we got our cap. There's already some grease in there, but I am going to go ahead and take a little bit of anti-seize here and put a little bit around here. And make a big mess with my finger. A little bit of anti-seize just for kicks and giggles. With the grease on there, you'd probably be okay, but the anti-seize will just give us a little bit more chance of getting this off if it ever does rust and seize in there. And we'll take that outside. And I'm not reefing on it, just get it there and then give it a bump. And I will clean this up when I'm all done. I'm actually going to go in with probably some sort of a sander even, or a wire brush, get all this flaky, rusty paint and crap off of here. So I think that's all we're going to do for today. I actually am going to put a new tire on this rim here and clean it up, clean this all up. I'm doing the front end bolts on this because this whole thing is just flopping in the wind right now. So if you would like to watch more about this tractor, go check out my George playlist. It has all the different things on this tractor, including why I call it George. Go look at the introduction to my tractor here, and there's a little story behind that. But anyhow, I got several different things coming up, as well as a few things already on this tractor if you need some need to do some work on the TO20 here. Alright, thanks for watching Junkworks DIY Garage, where I'm proud to say I'm a jack of all and master of none. You all have a good one.